Yes. Yeah, it is. It is. It's true. But hold on. Wait. Before you go and click on whatever Mr. Beast video you're about to watch next, allow me to explain. Hi, I'm Dave, founder of Halloween Year Round, and wow, Madam Web is a movie that exists, and that's all I have to say about that. No, actually, I have a lot to say about it. Real quick before we get started with that, though, did you know Halloween Year Round has a Patreon? There's a link in the description. Go ahead and subscribe to that. It really helps out the channel. Patrons get a monthly commentary that my wife Jess and I record. You get to pick the movie, and it's a lot of fun just listening to both of us bicker with each other about the movie, and just, who doesn't want that? So definitely check that out. Let's talk about Madam Web.
Now!
I've been trying very hard to think about the perfect way to describe Madam Web. And I think I'm going to go with this. Madam Web is like reading the prologue of a book, but the rest of the book is never going to get written or published, and all you have is this prologue that, sets up something that you're never going to see. And I think that that's the ultimate issue that I have with Madam Web. Now, granted, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's just as bad as Morbius. There's a lot of, comparisons are everywhere. I'll say this. Morbius didn't frustrate me as much. Morbius was just dull, boring, uninspired. It was Jared Leto's weird vanity project that, the dude's a creep in real life, and he's boring and dull in Morbius, which I don't understand. He should be a natural at being a weird, creepy vampire. But anyways, I'm not going to talk about Morbius. Madam Web, on the other hand, really has ideas and potential, and buried deep within this movie, I kind of see elements of what could have been, I don't want to say could have been a decent movie, and it's just squandered. So let's get into it. We open up in 1973 in the Peruvian jungle with a very pregnant woman played by Carrie Bichet, who I know from Scrubs Season 9 and Red State and Argo. And they're studying these spiders, and then she gets, betrayed by weird, the actor's French. I'm not sure what nationality the character's supposed to be, but he's Ezekiel. He's our villain. He's probably my favorite part of this movie, only because his performance, and I don't know if this was something intentional the actor was doing. I don't know if this was the director. I don't know. It seems like he's the only one that knows, what a dumb movie he's in. And it's he plays his role like the villain of a Spanish soap opera. That level of just cheesy, over the top, that I'm there's no way this guy isn't aware of what he's doing, and he's in on the joke. So, the woman dies, she gives birth to her baby, and they're oh, one day she'll come back to this spider people land, whatever. Oh, spoiler warning, but who really gives a shit? So 30 years later, it's now 2003, and we've got Dakota Johnson as Cassie Webb. She's a paramedic. Her partner is Ben Parker, the youngest version of Ben Parker we've ever seen, played by Adam Scott. We meet Mary Parker, his sister-in-law, played by Emma Roberts. Who knew that Emma Roberts was Peter Parker's mother? And who knew that this movie needed to also, be an origin of how Peter Parker was born? Even though, we never actually see him in the movie. We just see his mother pregnant and then going to the hospital to deliver. And it's just, and if we're going with the timeline of any of the other Spider-Man movies, it doesn't add up because, like, Peter Parker shouldn't be being born in 2003 unless this is supposed to be like the MCU version. But to the movie's credit, at the very least, it doesn't try to force itself to connect to any of the other movies. Something that I think Morbius was kind of notorious for. So Cassie gets these weird visions, and it's almost like when the movie is being like Final Destination, it's actually not terrible. Like that whole first act where you have her seeing these accidents play out and then seeing them happen for real, like cool concept. And then I really like Dakota Johnson as like the awkward loner paramedic, like uncomfortable receiving a gift from a family member of someone she saved, awkwardly bringing up that her own mom died in childbirth at a baby shower, for Emma Roberts. So when the movie's doing that, when the movie is just relishing in its own weirdness, it works. But then it tries to go legit, and we get this guy Ezekiel having these visions of like 3 women coming to kill him, so he has to go kill them first. And like the whole plot is basically Cassie finds the 3 girls, Sydney Sweeney, Isabella Merced, and Celeste O'Connor, who are like all 3 different versions of Spider-Woman. And it's like she protects them because one day they're gonna grow up and she's gonna be their leader, and they're all gonna like defeat this guy Ezekiel, so he's gotta kill them first. But the cardinal sin this movie commits is we never actually see them do that in this movie. We never, like, all the promotional material that features them in their costumes and fighting, that's all visions of the future. So it's like, hey, here's a superhero movie where they never actually become superheroes. Like, somewhere buried in here was, I get, something more. Like even if after Cassie first, rescues them and they go into hiding, if they started to manifest and develop their powers there, and then at the end, they all use their powers to defeat him, and it's exactly like his vision. But no, it's nothing like his vision. They just, go to the freaking fireworks factory and defeat him without powers, even though he does have powers. There's so much that just makes no sense. And then, why have this dramatic moment of, Emma Roberts being like, oh, I'm going to give birth to Peter Parker, which, by the way, they never say the name. Because, ooh, I wonder who it is. And, you do all that, and there's no payoff. It's just there to be there. It reminded me almost of, how in Joker, you do see a young Bruce Wayne. And when I first saw that movie, initially I thought, oh, did they really have to include young Bruce Wayne? What does he add to the story? Well, lo and behold, spoilers for Joker. That's all a setup for Thomas and Martha Wayne getting killed in the end as a result of, Joker's actions and the riots in the city and all that. So in that movie, it made sense. It all did come full circle. Here, it doesn't. You could literally take out Ben Parker, Mary Parker. You take and I say this, I love Adam Scott. I loved him in Parks and Rec. He's a great actor. He's really funny. Loved him in Step Brothers. But it's what are you doing in this movie? And same goes for Emma Roberts. I love her on American Horror Story, and interestingly, on American Horror Story this season, she's also playing a character who lives in New York and is pregnant with a demon baby, so, maybe there was a connection there. But if you took them out of this movie entirely, it changes nothing. It's there's so many points that if you completely change something, it makes it, the plot, it feels like, I don't know, this movie just, it broke me, because I'm trying to follow the logic. to put it in Madam Web terms, I'm trying to follow this web of events and connections between characters and story beats, and none of it's making sense. And then at the end, she's randomly like blind and in a wheelchair now, and she's like, "Oh, the best part about the future is that it hasn't happened yet." So it's like you're telling me the best part about this movie is that it's the stuff that's good isn't in the movie? What were you thinking? Again, with Morbius, I can buy that it was lazy. It was like, all right, let's just do your run of the mill origin story. Let's get Jared Leto going full method because he's like that, and making some poor intern having to hold it for him in the bathroom because he's got to walk on his crutches even in between takes. But this movie, I would give anything to have been in like the production meetings and in the writers' rooms. And I say this, there's a viral kind of tweet going around about like the writers of this movie who also wrote Morbius and Dracula Untold and Gods of Egypt. I don't necessarily blame the screenwriters because I know that screenwriters have very little say in Hollywood. They turn in their script and it gets taken from them. It gets butchered. It gets written and rewritten like 10 times by uncredited other writers and producers and studio executives coming in and micromanaging it. So I don't necessarily blame the writers. And they'll even tell you that like the version that they gave in was very different than the version of the final movie that we see. But I would have given anything to be in on those meetings where like who was making these decisions and what were they trying to do? Because it's like a superhero movie without any superheroes. It's as campy as like a soap opera. It's as campy as like a 70s live action TV show. But then it takes itself way too seriously in other areas. And I mean, it's an example of you have a lot of really talented people in this movie. Again, these are not bad actors. Adam Scott, Emma Roberts, Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney. These are talented people. It almost feels like, and I'll never be able to prove this. It feels like this movie was, in the producers, when they set out to make the worst movie on purpose, it feels like that's this movie. Because there's no way that this wasn't intentional. There's no way that this was not the plan. So, that's really all I have to say about Madam Web. It is a mess, but it is a spectacular mess. It frustrated me. It has all these ideas, and it's like if they had taken any one of its ideas and fleshed it out fully, it could have been a good movie. But it just throws a million things at the wall, and nothing sticks. I I heard a lot of people say that it feels like the movie was written by AI. Dakota Johnson even made a joke about that on SNL.
I have a new movie coming out. It's called Madam Web. It is in the Marvel Universe, and it also stars Sydney Sweeney. So it's kind of like if AI generated your boyfriend's perfect movie.
Well, I don't think it was necessarily made by AI, but I think that it is demonstrative of the fact that when you have this sort of, decision by committee process of filmmaking like you do with these big budget movies, it's as close to AI as you get without actually using AI. So, no clue what the future holds in store for the future, the Spider-Verse without Spider-Man. But I think we're at the point now that you can't keep making references to Spider-Man if you're never going to show him. You can't. Sony needs to either quit while they're ahead and just stop these movies, or they need to actually bring a new Spider-Man into it to connect it, or they need to just, if you're going to make these movies about random one-off characters, stop trying to connect Spider-Man to it, because all you're doing is you're teasing the audience of something that you know they're never going to have, and that's just quite cruel. But these are just my thoughts. This is just my rant. Let me know what your thoughts are. Did you see Madam Web? What did you like about it, if anything? Like, share, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. If you don't, you may end up getting stuck watching this movie on repeat in hell for all eternity. And as always, every day is Halloween.